I'm a satisfaction expert and yoga teacher, and I'm all about empowering people, empowering disillusioned people to live and create a satisfied life that they don't need to escape from. And I'm going to talk about the third element of satisfaction this week, which is finding your flow. And I'm just half considering trying doing something that I've never done before. If I can. I don't know if it's even here anymore. I was thinking of trying to share my screen, but it looks like the share screen thing on Facebook kind of disappears once you go live. That's a bit odd. Just do all these little chatty bits and then realise that I'm going to put this up on YouTube, and to people, so for my YouTube followers and watchers, I'm sorry that there's bits in this that don't make any sense. So I can't do that. So I'm just going to have to do, you're just going to have to go and visit my blog where I wrote a bit more detail about some of this stuff, or a bit different detail. So I just kind of go into things in a different way when I talk about them. And I'm talking about flow. So tell me in the comments, whether you're watching live or on catch up or on YouTube, tell me if you've ever experienced that moment where you're so immersed in doing something that time just doesn't exist for you, or where you kind of look up and suddenly realise that you've been doing it for ages and it just hadn't realised, or where a task that you're doing just doesn't feel like it's you doing it, or it's just everything comes together in a perfect moment. This is the concept of flow. This is an experience of flow. The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi has studied it all his life. He sadly passed away in October last year, which always makes me feel even more like I need to keep carrying his message around and keep telling people about this amazing idea. And he did all this investigation. He was investigating how people can feel happier, and he found this condition of optimal human experience, which he christened flow. I mean, it's not an entirely new concept, or wasn't even a new concept when he started looking into it in the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. But this idea of this optimal human experience, and he spoke to lots of people, like in particular artists and creatives, so dancers and musicians, people like surgeons, athletes, rock climbers, I think came up quite a lot, and asked them about when do they feel at their best. And through all his studies, he came up with 8 parameters that come together to create flow. So I'm going to talk you through these now. And some of them are things that you can purposefully create. And then the last few are more the result of us bringing all these things together. And then when all 8 align, we're normally in, or quite often can be in this mode of flow, this experience of flow. So the first one is getting an optimum balance between our challenge and skill level. So this is not about, you can't flow when you're not doing anything. If you're just vegging and watching telly. There's not necessarily anything wrong with watching telly, but you ain't going to get in a state of flow from it unless it really challenges you, or you're finding some way of challenge within it. So maybe a quiz program, but it needs to be a challenge that's just at the edge of your skill level. So whatever we choose to do to induce this sensation of flow, we have to have, it's got to be a challenge that is we're just capable of. So it really is about finding a fine edge, that point at which If it gets too hard, then we just get frustrated and we can get quite bored. If it's too easy, we get bored as well. So finding that perfect balance, that perfect point at our skill level where the challenge comes to meet it. We have to have a clear objective and goal, or goal. So a reason that, something that we're heading towards. Doesn't have to be a deep, meaningful goal, just has to be something that we're trying to achieve. So Csikszentmihalyi talks about how we can induce a state of flow into our everyday and into even the most mundane of tasks. So it might be something like washing up. Can you have an objective of how you're washing up, a perfect way to stack the plates, or saving as much water as possible? When you're driving, even if you're waiting in the doctor's surgery, you could kind of like find little tasks, little ways, these micro flows. People do things like touching their fingers, or if you're listening to music, trying to drum perfectly in time with the music. But you've got to have that objective to what you're doing. The third thing is having a sense of control over our actions. So this kind of links into the first one. We have to feel like we are in control of our situation, or we can change the situation. So again, just absorbing entertainment, just being a spectator, is not really going to induce a state of flow unless we can feel like we're a real participant in the event. I think perhaps where live entertainment perhaps does start to cross into this, because the audience still has a part to play in that relationship and in that situation. Getting direct, immediate feedback is the fourth one. And it's not necessarily external feedback, although it could be. It's just knowing that what you're doing is having that effect that you're trying to have. So that might be a rock climber. Rock climber's a good example here. Your direct, immediate feedback, if you're a rock climber, is I'm still clinging onto the rock. I haven't fallen down the mountain. That's how you know that you really do have very, very immediate feedback if you're climbing a mountain. So we kind of need that. If we're just blindly doing a task and we don't have a sense of the goal, and we don't have a sense of how far we're progressing towards that goal, it's hard for us to find a state of flow. Complete concentration and attention is number 5. This is a no distraction thing. So you can see where these are all things that we can do ourselves, or we can put these parameters in place. So can you create a situation where you have no distractions, where you can completely concentrate solely on that task that you're doing? And the 6th one is kind of related to this. It's focus to the exclusion of all other information. So it's kind of slightly different, but this is where we start to get into the realms of how all these things will make us feel, how we feel in this state of flow. So when we get to the point where we're no longer able to, or we're no longer aware of anything else around us, like time, like ourselves, they're the next couple. But, we're not aware of other people being around us. We're not aware if someone comes and puts a cuppa by us. We're not aware if someone tries to attract our attention. When you try and get someone's attention and it seems like they just don't hear you. So that complete absorption in what we're doing, to the exclusion of everything else, including, as I said, ourselves. So loss of self-awareness is the 7th thing. And this is where Csikszentmihalyi would, I think it was quotes in particular from dancers, ballet dancers, or musicians, where they perhaps said that it feels like they're not even moving their fingers anymore. This is me playing a violin. They feel like they're not actually doing this anymore. It's something is just kind of flowing through them. This music is just flowing through them. It's just taken over their body. But there is still that sense that they are in control. So there's a real fine balance there, isn't there? There's still that sense that one missed finger and everything will kind of fall like a pack of cards. You know, that sense of flow will go if you just miss one note or missed a beat. So that loss of self-awareness and that feeling like, actually, you know, no one's really aware of me anymore. It's just what's coming out is what's flowing from what I'm doing. And then the transformation of the sense of time is the 8th one. So like I say, that sense that you don't just not aware of time ticking by at all. You be so immersed in something, you look up and you realise it's gone dark and you think, well, how did that happen? Sometimes when I'm working away, it is that it's gone dark. That's what kind of breaks my reverie of working, is I suddenly realise I can't really see what I'm doing. I can't really see my keyboard anymore. And actually the reverse can be true as well. It could be that you have a really productive session and think, wow, I've got loads of things done here. I've got a big piece of work done. And then you look at the clock and realise that actually only half an hour has passed, and you thought that you'd been a couple of hours at it, but actually, you know, time has passed much slower than you expected. So it is that transformation of the sense of time. So those are the 8 parameters that we require for flow to be, for us to experience this optimal human experience. It's quite a cool thing, isn't it? It's quite cool that as well that we can think, do you know what, I can put things in place, I can try and create this myself. So I'd love to know how you experience flow. What do you do in your life where you find yourself in the flow of things? My yoga is quite often one of them. I'll kind of just be into doing stuff, and then I'll look up at the clock and realise I've been on my mat for 30-40 minutes when I only intended to do 10 minutes. But like I say, it tends to be creative things. Could be cooking, something like cooking. Again, that's a really good one, because you know what you're trying to produce, you know what your end goal is. You're getting that direct feedback, that immediate feedback, because you should be. If you're a good cook, you should be tasting as you go along. So that's a really good example as well. And this is all part of finding your flow. But finding your flow in terms of the satisfaction sessions that I do is not just about flow. And this concept of flow is very much all about that living in the moment idea, which sometimes feels really, really cheesy, doesn't it? It's one of those things that people always talk about, is live in the moment. It's always the cheesy meme is live in the moment, or live each second as it comes, each day as it comes. But it's true, and it really, really does help us in our well-being and our mental well-being, and helps us to feel more satisfied. And the other elements that pull into this are things like gratitude. So being grateful for my cat and all the joy she brings me. Gratitude is an interesting one, because we quite often will be grateful for things that have happened in our past. or things that from the future as well, things that are going to happen to us. And that's okay. In a weird way, as long as you're experiencing the gratitude right now, you're still living in the now. We're just kind of borrowing a little bit from our past. And if you had a really great experience in the past, why not? Why not enjoy it again? Why should it just live in the past? Why can we never enjoy it again in the present? You just got to be really careful about not kind of mourning that past. That's nostalgia. It's when you're not so much enjoying what happened in the past, but you're really pining, wishing that it happened again, wishing you were back there, wishing things were different now. That's not really being grateful for something happening. That's just wishing it was happening right now. And that's not really productive emotion to put yourself through. But we can be grateful for what we're experiencing right now. Grateful right now for an experience we had in the past. Savouring is another thing that I bring into finding our flow. This is really paying attention. This really is the living in the moment stuff. Paying attention to what you're doing right now. Trying to pare it down so you're not multitasking your pleasure. And if you are multitasking, just making sure you're experiencing all those things that you're multitasking. So if you have a tendency when you're watching TV to also be on your phone and also have a bag of crisps or a chocolate bar by the side of you, how much of all those things are you really experiencing? You know, we've all done that where we've got through a huge chocolate bar and realised that we haven't really tasted any of it because we've been scoffing it while we've been watching the TV. So savouring is about really focusing in on our individual moments, taking that extra breath, just creating a bit of space, say, this is a good moment right now. And what else? Contentment and acceptance. So returning to my system of acts, and the first thing is to assess and accept. And this is all about being in our present moment, accepting where we are right now, accepting our present moment. Because we can't, until we've accepted that, no change will happen. We can't instigate any change of any sort. So learning to accept ourselves, learning to accept other people, forgiveness, learning to be content with what we have rather than always striving for something else. And this might seem a little bit at odds with the idea of us having a purpose to life, having something that drives us. I think, personally for me, please disagree with me if you disagree. Please tell me if you disagree. But I think a nourishing and satisfying life is to have both. We should have something that drives us, have that purpose. But we should also, along with that, be able to stop and smell the flowers occasionally. We should be able to enjoy the progress we've made so far. This is one of those things that I talk about. There's no point in waiting until the end of your life to say, oh, I did lots of things. Why can't you enjoy them throughout your life? So this is all part of finding our flow. Really, really key part of satisfaction, and this is going to be the first phase of the satisfaction revolution, which I am going to be probably talking about more next week. I'm going to be launching it over the next month. That's going to be coming at the beginning of June.